Hi, I'm Pastor Stephen Feinstein. I want to make a short video for you guys to show you just how much work goes into sermon preparation for pastors who actually do expositional preaching. Not all preaching is the same, and it's definitely not all equal. Many pastors just do topical preaching Sunday after Sunday, where they come up with an idea and then they sprinkle Bible verses on top. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is when a pastor goes to the Word of God and preaches a full text, and that the point of the text that they're preaching is the point of the sermon. Now, if a pastor is going to do that, which they should do that, a lot of work goes into it. And I want the people of the church to know just how much study goes in to making such sermons. And so bear with me as I just show you really briefly how much goes into it.
So first we start with the Greek text, and so I'm just scrolling to show you how it's all broken up and put apart. And then I start translating it. So the Greek is peride ton parthenon, which would be but concerning virgins. And then epitagein kurio uk echo, I have no command from the Lord. And then what I do here is I always stop at the verbs, because the verbs are the main movers of any sentence. And so the verb here is echo, which is I have. And what I always do is I, on the side, will tell you what the verb is. I'm mainly doing this for my own self, but it's a verb. It's in the present tense. It's active in its voice. It's indicative in its mood, meaning it indicates something. And it's first person singular. So this is the completed translation. It took me a good 2.5 to 3 hours to get this done, just because this text is a lot longer than they normally are. And then of course you could see on the side all the verbs parsed. After I'm done with the Greek text, then the next thing I want to do is I want to figure out what the exact relationship is between all the clauses. So what I do is I have the ESV translation on the left, and then I have my own translation on the right, and I use a program called Bible Arc. And what I'm doing here is I'm breaking the verses up into their individual propositions, which is pretty much it's a complete thought, a subject, verb, and object. And so I break it up into all of its individual propositions, and then what I'm going to do is determine the relationship between them so that I can understand the flow of the text and the argument of the author. So after it's all done and I have it split into all of its many propositions, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to start making the brackets. The brackets describe the relationship from proposition to proposition. So you always start with the smallest thought and then you move to the bigger one. So right here I have one clause or one proposition. Are you bound to a wife? Do not seek to be free. That bracketing relationship is called question and answer, and that's why you see Q&A. And then the same thing is true of are you free from a wife? Do not seek a wife. So those are both question and answers. But now how are these two questions of answers related to each other? They're a series. And so that's why I put S for a series there. But then beyond that, I need to connect it to an even bigger thought. So how does it connect to the proposition prior to it, where it says it's good for a person to remain as he is? Well, here, this is an idea explanation. The idea is it's good for a person to remain as he is, and then this series is an explanation of that. Well, like the translation process goes, this is very time-intensive and laborious, but when it's all done, you can now see the entire text and all of its clauses related to each other, both in the small picture and the big picture. So the idea with this is to show the relationship between the clauses. So first we start with the clauses right next to each other, or the propositions. But then we move out and we start showing the connection between bigger chunks. And so that's what I show there. And then finally, as you go further and further to the left, these brackets are showing the relationship between the major sections, not just propositions, but sections. And then finally, you end up with the general idea of what is the main thrust or point or argument that all these are making collectively. Once you've done your Greek translation and your bracketing, you're now ready to move to the commentaries. These are some of the bigger commentaries that I like to use. As far as the commentaries go, for the New Testament, the New International Greek Testament Commentary is probably one of the heftier ones. Very technical, dry reading, it takes a long time to get through it. Not as intense as the other one, but the Baker series is also a really good exegetical commentary filled with a lot of great historical information and grammatical insight. And I can't forget about my trusty Bible software program known as Logos. This has thousands upon thousands of resources in it and very helpful tools. Right here on the right side, I'm just looking through some commentaries. So in addition to reading hardback commentaries, I also read digital ones. I would say to prepare for a sermon, I probably read between 70 to 100 pages of commentary total to get the historical background. And believe me, it's not fast reading. In addition to commentaries, this program also has many other tools, like this right here shows you Greek words and their relationships within the sentences. Very helpful. And when you are done looking at the commentaries, then you could consult your systematic and historical theologies.
So with this video, I just showed you in a very fast way all of the research that goes into putting together a good sermon. That's not to say that every expositional preacher is going to do all of those steps that I just outlined. There are some that people might skip, and there's others that weren't there that I skipped, like diagramming. But the point is, an expositional preacher is definitely going to employ a lot of these study tools because they want to know what the text actually means. I haven't said anything about the actual writing of the sermon and the preparation of the sermon. That takes a long time as well. After all of this work is done, it takes about, I'd say, 5 hours to write the sermon. And then for me, I spend about 3 hours practicing it before I ever preach it. So when you think of how long it takes to do all that studying, to do the translating, to read the commentaries, to do the bracketing, and then to write the sermon, to practice the sermon, it takes no less than 20 hours for a preacher to put together an expositional sermon. The benefits you get out of it is the sermons won't be boring because you're going to be fed with so much information from the text. I often have people mention, like, how do you guys get so much out of such a small text? And it's because of all the homework I just showed you that we did. So for those of you Christians who go to churches where the pastors are not feeding you because they're not doing this kind of study, there's no reason you'd have to stay there, okay? You could go to a church where they honor God and share His word with you through such means. And for the rest of you that already go to a church where they preach this way, just remember all the work that your pastors do on your behalf. It's definitely not easy, and it's very labor intensive. Have a great day.